Good morning, friends. Happy Sunday. Today is a good day. Happy Easter to those of you who observe the holiday, and wishing you a wonderful and creative celebration today as we are in this the Easter spirit. And for those of you that that isn't your faith tradition, I often think of a friend of mine who was of a different faith tradition that lived out in Helena, Montana, and though she was not practicing practicing Christian, she still so much appreciated the Easter holiday and the story of rebirth, and that really ties into that story of the hero's journey with Joseph Campbell. Taking our time to go on our hero's journey, leave the ordinary world, and pass those threshold guardians, or those, we could say in the artist way, building up enough escape velocity to move into the unknown world, and go on this journey of our life, face our greatest fear, and return home to teach and share the gifts of our journey with our friends, our family members, and our loved ones. So I just some reflections here as we begin this morning on this cold, overcast day here in Minnesota, and we begin a conversation on the third human gift with regard to internal freedom, which is exploring our independent will. So I see Darlene is on. Good morning, Darlene. And good morning, Elizabeth. And good morning, Henriette and Kathy. So wonderful to be with all four of you, and excited for the reflection here on this Easter Sunday, and see what will emerge. So I have some ideas sketched out with regard to what topics to explore here in this area of independent will, and I think I'll grab those. Although I don't want this to be a specific reflection, more of a open reflection of just starting the conversation, because of course, as I share reflections, these aren't necessarily these are ideas and reflections are to spark what is in you, and each one of us brings to each one of these reflections our own experience. We bring teachers, we bring wisdom, and so I just want to open up experiences around independent will, and how can we take this self-awareness that we have cultivated and we continue to cultivate. How do we start to take this creative imagination with the artist way exploration, and how do we start to make that transition from that which is really oftentimes subconscious, and start to move it into a process that brings it into the world, into the physical world. And that process and the experience of having done that now for a number of years is still full of wonder and mystery to me on how that happens. And with regard to how to do that, in my experience, there are a number of ways to midwife these creative longings and yearnings and visions into this world. And so over these next few days, I'd like to just share some reflections on my experience with that, and just open up ideas and conversations within us all. So one of the ways that I mobilize things into the world from the artist's way is through having those impulses, those images, those longings, and just as simple as it sounds, using the morning pages to just start writing about those ideas, and using question prompts like writing about, well, what if I were to bring this new business idea, and then just opening my mind to a what if question, and just writing about it, just opening my mind from from impossible to possible, and just start writing, giving myself permission to write about it, what it could be like. And the curious thing that I've observed is that once I have this image in my mind of what's possible in whatever area I want to create, as I'm writing about it, what I've come to realize is that in a very small but very literal way, I am taking action. Well, how am I taking action? And what I've realized is, as I have my pencil, and I am imagining and I'm writing, I'm literally taking action. The movement of my fingers, from my brain to my fingers onto the page, is the beginning, to me, of starting to bring those creative ideas into the physical world. It's a tiny behavior of moving the pencil or pen across the page, and it goes from imagination into language on the page, and it goes into movement through my coordinated finger movement of my writing. Now that may seem a little esoteric, and it just occurred to me one day as I started to be self-aware of the process of how do things go from imagination and start to move into reality. And I realized as I was writing, and this is a self-awareness piece, that it was literally happening as I was holding the image in my imagination and observing my hand move across the page while I was moving into action, no matter how small of an action. And it was coming into this world, into actual language written on a page. And for me, I've come to believe and come to understand that very simple action of holding an image and writing is the beginning of a new action and behavior, and a way of anchoring that into reality through the written word on a piece of paper. From there, it can then start to move into more traditional forms of planning. Then it can start to move into in objective. It can move into a vision board. It can move into goals. It can move into tasks. And I'll share reflections on all of that. But I just wanted to share that little moment of transition from self-awareness and imagination, and one way that I've observed on how it actually comes into this world simply through those morning pages and that longhand writing. It could be typing for you, whatever way that you can bring that self-awareness. But to recognize it is that movement of your fingers, or that movement of the keystrokes. You are literally moving into action in a very small way, and it is being anchored into this world through those beginning buds of your language. Early on in my my coaching training, when I was just starting out doing my formal training as a somatic coach, there was this my teacher, one of my principal teachers. His name is Richard Strozzi, and he said something that early on kind of baffled me. This is 14 years ago, and he said, we live in language. I mean, he said that, and I did, I just kind of, it seemed poetic, and I didn't really quite know what he meant by that. I just kind of filed it away as, okay, one of those pieces of wisdom that maybe one day I would live into. And as the years went on, I came to understand that we truly do initiate change through the written and spoken word. And this is one example of how we do that, how we take some creative impulse and we start to move it into language, and all of a sudden it starts to ignite the process of action. And so that's really powerful. As I share this reflections on the artist's way, and to bring this conversation or how language initiates us into action. Other practices that can be very helpful. I also will take these images, and I have an artist's sketchbook, and so I'll take as a way to anchor them in. I will sketch out the image of what the future realization of this creative project or this creative goal will look like in color. So I'll sketch that out. So in that way, it's not the written word, but in an artistic way, I'll sketch out the scene, the future scene of success, and then that'll become my vision board. And then I will use traditional project planning to start to create organization, intention around bringing that into the world. And as a matter of fact, I was fortunate to take a project planning course last year, and so out of that course I created these one-page sheets that really had the essence of the traditional project planning process that's used in business, and I started to blend that with the artist practices. And what's really been wonderful about that is, and I'll share these on a future morning reflection, is it's a legal size paper, and what it has at the top is the project name, and then I will put my core values, the core values I live by, and those core values, that kind of ties into the next conversation around internal freedom, which is the cultivation of our conscience and our ethics. We'll talk about that later, but I'll put that down there just to remind me what I'm about. And then there's a place for those that feel inclined. You can write down, if you have a personal mission statement, like what it is, your purpose is, what your calling is. And then there's a big vision board place section on there where you can anchor in the vision board you created or sketched out, or put inspiring pieces of clip art on there that represent success as you imagine it when the project comes to completion. And then after that's really anchored, then there's a place for a vision statement, and then underneath that is a vision narrative, closing your eyes, using imagination to describe that future event, how it will look, how it will feel upon completion of it. So that becomes a guiding force. In some ways we live, as we move things forward and we start to mobilize things with our independent will, we use that imagination so that we live success twice. Once in our imagination, we live it in our imagination, and then we live it again in reality. So there's this almost like deja vu quality to creative project planning, and then after have that clear picture of what success looks like, what it feels like, how I would describe that future event, then I start to work into planning the objectives, like what are the measurable things that will change when this future event is created. And I, in our conversation of with regard to a process, my personal practice is to not only have objectives, which is pretty traditional, but I also have, I create subjectives. And this is something that is not in traditional business planning. And that is my commitment to the mental, emotional states that I am committing to hold along the journey. So, for example, I may have 3 objectives that are measurable in a traditional way, but my subjectives for the project may be acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. So that commitment with my subjectives means that my intention is to hold a sense of enthusiasm, enjoyment, or acceptance along each task along the way, and if I consistently can't at least be in a state of acceptance, in other words, I'm resentful or I'm angry or I'm frustrated consistently, it tells me that this project needs to change. I need to change something because the process really is not creating a positive mental emotional state for me. And it's a little different than what is traditionally taught. Traditionally, I was taught, the ends justify the means, and do what you have to do to achieve the objective. And from an artist's way perspective, that art and creativity is process first and foremost, not final form, completion or arrival. To me, since that is a strong belief of mine, that these subjectives are more important than the objectives. And so that's how I really hold those, as objectives and subjectives, and I write those out. And then I go into writing underneath those goals, those objectives. I write, goals, process goals, performance goals, maybe outcome goals. I'll have tasks under each one of those, the more granular pieces, and then the logistics, what, where, when, why, how. And then I will also put down in there what is my recognition and celebration plan. So I make sure I reward myself or whoever I'm working with frequently, no matter how small the reward, but some kind of recognition to keep motivation strong. And then some kind of final celebration and recognition at the project completion, and a formal debrief, just reflecting back what went well, what didn't go well and how could it do it differently, and then what are the new ideas and new goals that came out of that experience for the next time, for the next project. And so that final reflection is what keeps the cycle moving in a positive circle as we move things from imagination into operation. And so those are some of the areas that I want to share over the next coming days, and how my experiences with those different aspects of planning and creative project planning. So that is the segue into the cultivation of independent will as far as a mental structure. There's also great practices, as I mentioned, like doing longhand writing and a writing meditation on our intentions to move us into action. There are practices in the somatic tradition where we can also tie bodily movement into the actions we take, where we can speak an intention or a declaration, then do a movement practice, and then finish that movement practice, and then speak that declaration or that intention again. And that allows us to wire together, neurologically, wire our language, our intention, and our action together. And so we include the body, which is the source of our action, the source of our behavior. And then we can start to infuse that with intention and language. And it's another powerful way to include the body into project planning on a somatic level. And so I'll be sharing some reflections and some stories on how that has operationalized in my life. And so here we are at the precipice of this independent will, one of our human freedoms, which also exists between the stimulus and the response. And just going back to the very beginning, it's one of those wonderful human abilities that we all have the opportunity to cultivate during this time of shelter in place and social distancing. Well, our liberty is being contracted. We can expand our internal freedom. We can expand our self-awareness. We can expand our creative imagination, our independent will, and expand our conscience, our sense of what is right and wrong, and the embodiment of universal principles. So with that, let's begin to cultivate our self-awareness through some somatic practices. And let's begin by checking in with our mood. So just notice what your mood is right now. I feel hopeful, and so I'm just feeling into that right now. Notice what your mood is. And we're meeting that without judgment, without attachment, and without resistance. And then let's begin by relaxing. Beginning by relaxing your eyes. Soft eyes. Relax your jaw. Bring your shoulders up, clench your fists, and let that go. And feeling into that. Let's do that one more time. Bring your shoulders up, clench your fists, and release. And then feel into your shoulders. And soften your chest, so opening your chest. And relaxing your diaphragm here. Just large, flat breathing muscle here at the lower rib cage. Starting to breathe down low into your belly. You can even breathe into your low back. Slow inhale, slow exhale. And relaxing your hips and pelvic area. Relaxing the pelvic floor. And like our shoulders, we can start to contract and relax there. Pulling the pelvis up and in. And then setting that down and relaxing and feeling. Good. And contracting the pelvis up and in. And letting go. And then beginning by relaxing your thighs and your knees. Relaxing calves, shins, the soles of your feet and your toes. And we're just creating more space. Making space for the energy, our emotions, the sensations in our body. Starting to create a shift. Becoming present to and conscious of what often is unconscious and just is in the background. Making conscious emotion, making conscious sensation. And just start to feel in here, do a sensation check. When I say that, I'm referring to just noticing your felt sense of temperature, your felt sense of movement. Do you feel like you're expanding or contracting? Notice your felt sense of weight. Do you feel heavy or light? Felt sense of texture. Do you feel jagged, rough, smooth? Notice what that quality is. And bringing your attention inward and feel your felt sense of shape. So as you feel in somatically, just noticing your felt sense of your length from top to bottom. And feel into your felt sense of width from left to right. Do you feel narrow? Do you feel wide? Notice your felt sense of depth. Do you feel like you're leaning forward? Are you leaning back? Do you feel centered? And as we feel into our somatic sensibilities, our somatic shape, we're meeting that without judgment, without attachment, and without resistance. Just becoming fully aware and present to our full intelligence. Becoming present to sensation, emotion, and our rational thinking. Our full intelligence. And then let's take 3 deep breaths here. So deep breath in and exhale. A deep breath in and exhale. And one more breath. And exhale. And let's begin centering this morning, centering together. Standing or seated, let's start to center in our length from top to bottom. Beginning to straighten we're both straightening and we're settling. As we feel into our length, feeling our length as our felt sense of dignity as humans, our felt sense of power, and feeling ourselves as a bridge between heaven and earth. Our vertical line being our felt sense that unites our spirituality with our physicality, and just feeling in there. And then let's use our imagination and our attention and use an imagery practice here. So take a deep breath in to the crown of our head. Pull that breath through. Exhale out through our feet and hands. And then taking a deep breath in with our imagination and our attention. Deep breath in through our feet and hands. And exhaling out through the crown of our head. And one more time, a deep breath in through the crown of our head, pulling through and exhaling through our feet and hands. And just taking a moment to feel here. Feeling centered in our length. And bringing our attention now to our somatic width. So feeling in here, we can symbolize this through putting a left hand on our chest, right hand on our belly. Imagine this as a self-embrace. Our somatic width is our balance between self and others. So as we feel in here, we're feeling into our personal boundaries. We can tie that with our imagination to our felt sense. Just feeling the boundaries of our skin. We decide who comes in and who stays at a distance. So that isn't just a thought of a boundary, it's a felt sense in our body. And bring to mind one way you took care of yourself intentionally to build yourself up or enrich yourself in the last couple days. And tie that to the felt sense of your own body. And then let's begin to extend out, reaching our arms out, opening up in our width. And start to include maybe somebody that's in your home right now. Start to include them in your field of awareness. Start to extend out maybe out through a window, extending out to something in nature. Each morning there's a tree out to my right that calls to me, so I'm extending out, including that in my field of awareness. And then maybe including somebody that is a good friend, an ally of yours, who has your back. Imagine they're standing next to you, including them. And then I'm extending out, and just extending out to everybody that's live on this post. So I'm imagining all of you here with me right now in my imagination, that you're all seated in this room in a circle. So I'm imagining Leland and Jamie and Tammy and Slavko, Elizabeth, Darlene, Henrietta and Kathy, and just starting to, as we use our imagination there, we're expanding in our width. And on this Easter Sunday, in that spirit, let's extend out and include an enemy or an adversary or an opponent, and extending out to them. maybe just for a few moments or maybe longer, just letting go of our grievance, our anger, our frustration, just letting go of that and extending out compassion, extending out love. And then with our imagination and our attention, taking a deep breath in through our left hand, pull that breath through the center of our body, and exhale out our right hand. And then deep breath in from our right hand, pulling that breath through the center of our body, and exhaling out our left hand. And then one more time, deep breath in to our left hand, pull that breath through with imagination and attention, exhale out through our right. Centering in our somatic width. Relaxing our arms down. And let's begin by centering in our depth from front to back. So maybe just leaning back into your chair, and as you feel into your back, imagine your history at your back. All the experiences that have shaped you, experiences, people you've met, friends, teachers, and both those teachers who initiated you on a formal path of study and stayed with you to cultivate that in you. And then those teachers that just come in to our lives for a moment, and they teach us something and then they move on. Feel your competency at your back, at the space behind you. Feel your lineage, your parents, your grandparents. All those things we can really lean into and give us confidence to move into an unknown future. Even in this moment, as I feel into my back, I see all of you that are here on this live post, and all the experiences that I've shared with each and every one of you. And as I see your names, distinct, vivid memories come back to me with each one of you, and I can feel that at my back. I can feel that at my back. And then let's start to move into the space in front of us. And as we start to bring our attention to that space in front of us, maybe 5 feet, 10 feet in front of us, imagine that as our future, where we're headed. This is the space of our creative visions, our longings, our yearnings, who we're becoming. Just allow yourself to feel that pull forward, that impulse, that human impulse, that call to adventure, that call to learning, to growth, to creativity. And then let's slowly center ourselves. So whether you're seated or standing, just find that even balance between the space in front of you and the space behind you, so that there is an actual physiological, felt sense of balance in your body. So all the weight of your body is resting down through your bones, through your skeletal system, and so we're aligning ourselves with gravity, so we can use our imagination to feel our history, where we've been, and that supports us. And we have an intention of where we're headed and a vision for the future, a spiritual vision of what's possible. So that's guiding us like a compass. And And at the same time, we're cultivating the majority of our attention and the majority of our presence into the present moment. And we can feel that in our body through the effortlessness in sitting or standing here. We can allow that effortlessness that we're creating in our physiological body to be the felt sense of the present moment. The only moment that ever really is. And then let's use imagery and attention, taking a deep breath in from the space behind us. So deep breath in, pull that through the center of your body, exhale out into your future. And then take a deep breath in about 10 feet in front of you. Imagine that as your vision, your longings. Taking a breath in, breathing that in, pulling that through the center of your body, exhaling out into your back. Again, using imagination and attention, about 10 feet behind you. Take a deep breath in, breathe in your history. Pull that breath through and then exhale out into your future. And then one more time. Breathe in your future, if you will. And exhale out into your past. And just take a moment to feel. Feeling yourself centered in your somatic depth. Balanced between past and future. Cultivating all your presence, all your power into this moment. Let's bring attention and energy to our right hand. So feeling the temperature of it. Feeling the shape of our hand. Placing it below our navel, feeling our somatic center. As we feel our hand on our belly, allow that to help us drop further from the thinking self down into the feeling self. And let's take 3 more deep breaths together. So a deep breath in and exhale. Feeling that as a deep breath into center. Taking a deep breath in to our felt sense of purpose. Deep breath in. And our final breath, a deep breath into the mystery. All that is beyond our knowing. Take a moment to feel here. I invite you to close your eyes and start to enter into that meditative and contemplative space. And as we enter that space, set your intention. Remind yourself for the sake of what that you're doing this practice. We'll begin our meditation with a new poem that really speaks to the body and action. A poem called I Talk to My Body. My body, you are an animal whose appropriate behavior is concentration and discipline. In effort of an athlete, of a saint, and of a yogi, well trained, you will become a gate through which I leave myself, and a gate through which I enter myself. A plumb line to the center of the earth, and a cosmic ship to Jupiter. My body, you are an animal for whom ambition is right. Splendid possibilities are open to us. My body, you are an animal whose appropriate behavior is concentration and discipline. In effort of an athlete, of a saint, and of a yogi, well trained, you will become for me a gate through which I leave myself and a gate through which I enter myself. A plumb line to the center of the earth and a cosmic ship to Jupiter. My body, you are an animal for whom ambition is right. Splendid possibilities are open to us. And as we close our meditation practice today, remind yourself again, for the sake of what, that you did the practice. And then on your next exhale, very slowly and very gently, begin to move your legs and arms. And very gently and very slowly, begin to open your eyes and let the outside world come back in again. Notice your mood right now, and notice if that's shifted since the beginning of our time this morning. And notice the images, the creative images that are moving through your imagination, and that may set the course of your day today. And become aware of those, out of those creative images, what impulses that are moving in you, what actions want to start to come and move through you. And pay attention to them. Maybe write about them. Maybe tie them to a practice so they begin to shape your day. So we both have our well-practiced habits, and we have, they're infused, those well-practiced habits are infused with creative imagination and new actions that are inspired actions. So thank you for spending the time this morning, this Easter morning, and in that Easter spirit, may we all let go of what is no longer useful to us, which is no longer relevant to us. Thoughts, emotions, behaviors. May we make, in that letting go, make space, and may we step into what is new and life-giving, and be transformed into who we're becoming and who we're meant to be. So blessings to you all, and I look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow morning at 7, and we'll be exploring more of visioning and vision boards and ways to start to anchor these creative yearnings and longings and felt images in our imagination, and start to anchor them and midwife them into reality through action and through a detailed planning process. So bye for now. Blessings on your day.